And welcome back to the Vicki McKenna Show. A little bit more, I guess, analysis, maybe a little wound licking over Tuesday's loss. Jake Curtis from Institute for Reforming Government joins me on the program. Hey, Jake, thanks for joining me.
Morning, Vicki.
So you're a lawyer. Let's just sort of look at what the landscape is likely to be going forward with this court. Because that, I think, we can talk about the political mistakes or this or that, but what should we gird our loins for? And then maybe what are some ways to sort of think through workarounds?
Yeah, great question. So, I have one political thought, I guess, because I actually, in addition to being an occasional guest, I'm a loyal listener, Vicki, and I was listening yesterday when you had Sheriff Clark on, and so there was one point I wanted to make there. But as far as like what's going to happen, I mean, this is what we've been talking about at IRG with our Court Watch project for the last 3 months. And I think we made an important contribution because when you break down these cases into various categories, whether it's school choice or just education freedom. I know you and Sheriff Clark talked yesterday about, the homeschool issue, which was the issue that Matt Batesville and I raised. 30,000 kids and Susan Crawford's husband literally writing a book about how to destroy homeschooling. Kind of seems like a big issue that we should have talked about. Act 10, voter ID is a little interesting now that obviously it's enshrined in the Constitution, but we certainly have done extensive work on Act 10. I mean, people need to be prepared that this is going to get litigated. It's at the Court of Appeals right now, and it's going to be appealed. And I just don't see a scenario where we're not in a world in 6 to 8 months where the Supreme Court has overturned Act 10, and either we're going to see significant property tax increases. Although, as you and I have talked about, Vicki, we have pointed out that the levy limits are still in place. So actually, what you could see happening is, ironically, right, for all the people that want increased government services, if we do away with Act 10 and there's not any sort of accompanying revenue increases from the state, you're going to actually see a significant decrease potentially in state services and the laying off of public workers.
Yeah, so that's true. The other thing you'll see as well is because, again, you can't just conjure money out of thin air. Once you see all of those demands, from 50% contribution to your pension savings, now it's going to be 0%, which means 100% of that goes on the taxpayer. That's going to strain the state budget, health insurance costs, Me Too collective bargaining agreements. I mean, you're just going to see cost demands explode, and the answer is necessarily going to have to be tax increases or layoffs. And this is at a time when Wisconsin economic output has gone down. So that's a huge one. On voter ID, what is, we have already heard, Susan Crawford actually talked about this on the campaign, about challenging the process. Well, what the hell? 2 successive legislative sessions. It passes both sessions. We vote on it. We vote overwhelmingly to pass voter ID in the Constitution. How could the process even kind of sort of be challenged?
Sure. I mean, I can't say I've gone through every case, but the few cases that I have kind of quickly skimmed through, there's an argument that you could present. And frankly, there's actually, I just saw yesterday, there's a bill that was proposed in the legislature by 2 progressives that tries to essentially outline the requirements for kind of plain language in a referendum that's presented to the voters. So, I mean, there's a way that you could kind of challenge the process such that the voters, the language wasn't clear and the intent of the legislature in proposing the constitutional amendment language wasn't clear to the voters. I mean, I think it's fair to say typically those challenges have not been successful. So I think it's fair to say that voter ID is here to stay.
Well, here's what I would say. Those challenges have not been successful, but we also have a left-wing Supreme Court that, in one respect, I mean, if Eric Holder's organization was supporting her campaign, there are 3 things he wants: an end to voter registration, he wants, an obliteration of congressional maps, and he wants an end to voter ID. So his group wrote her a pretty big check, and so I'm thinking about this lame argument they might make, but they made a lame argument on the district maps too.
Yeah, but to your point, though, Vicki, I think that just proved how political this court is. And I actually think they're going to be thinking a little strategically. And as much as they may hate voter ID, I mean, you had 70 out of 72 counties supported, 63% support. I think they're going to be strategic. They're going to go after Act 10, which, frankly, I mean, we know, because of groups like IRG and, frankly, Talk Radio that do a great job educating the public. Everybody in Southeast Wisconsin knows the benefits of Act 10. And we've done the polling, though, outstate. Those numbers get pretty weak, even among right-leaning folks. So I think they see an opportunity here to gut Act 10 and, frankly, just let the financial chips fall where they may. The other one that I'm really concerned with, Vicki, is remember, they strategically denied the petition essentially for a direct review at the Supreme Court from, I forget his name, the goofball from Minocqua.
Kurt Bangstad, yeah.
Remember, that was a petition for direct review at the Supreme Court. They denied that. I think they denied that because they did not want to have an issue like school choice that is frankly popular among, some maybe, center, moderate, African-American Democrats in Milwaukee. I think that was very strategic. Now that they've won this 10-year term on the court, it would not surprise me if we see another challenge to school choice and that they take it up. And so I guess if we could just pivot, Vicki, quickly, because I thought your conversation yesterday with Sheriff Clark was so important. There is a political lesson here. I mean, everybody's just, there's a lot of whining. I think we need to be precise. Like, what needs to be done? And I'm not suggesting I have all the solutions, but I do think we need to revisit the playbook. And I think your conversation with Sheriff Clark was really, really critical yesterday. We have got to do a better job of rethinking this playbook that we use every time, where it's just this soft on crime kind of law and order message. I agree, Vicki. I know you made the point yesterday that with, let's say, suburban moms, there's a way you can message that. But I can tell you, I talked to a lot of voters and the last few months, and not everybody listens to talk radio. Not everybody reads, IRG reports. There's a lot of just normal voters out there that, tend to be right of center. But when they look at these ads, when they see these ads where it's just, he's soft on crime, she's soft on crime, he had this soft sentence, she had this soft sentence, it just turns into like this political tennis match, and they tune it out.
I agree.
So I really, really agree with the segment that you had yesterday. We need to rethink how we message these campaigns, and we need to do a better job targeting, the kitchen table issues that IRG talks about, and the consultant class. And I don't, campaigns need consultants, and I know a lot of them, and they're good people. But are people going to be more motivated about public safety? Everybody supports public safety, and this is the other thing too. The left has been very good at co-opting that. Somehow they painted a 35-year prosecutor and attorney general as soft on crime. That's absurd, but they were effective at that. Well, so how do you cut through that? Talk to the 30,000, 60,000, whatever the number is. I mean, 30,000 according to DPI students. So, tens of thousands of families that homeschool. Talk to the, African-American families in Milwaukee that rely on school choice.
Absolutely.
Did we do anything to them?
We didn't do it.
About, hey,
we aren't flexible. We're not nimble. I've said this now to the point where if I feel like I'm repeating myself, but that we don't micro-target. And and I completely agree. These tabletop ads, these drop, cut and paste tabletop ads that are the same ad. They look the same. They sound the same. The same voice person is cutting the ad. It all just morphs into a big blob of noise. No one wants to pay attention to, and mostly people are annoyed by. So think that on the school issues, we're going to have to be strategic. My last question to you. On campaigns, we're going to have to be strategic. We're going to have to talk to the people who are most impacted by that, for crying out loud. But what are some workarounds, like on school choice? Is there a constitutional workaround to school choice? Is there a constitutional workaround to the attacks that are now, nobody even knows it, but they are coming on homeschool? Are there constitutional workarounds to some of these problems that we could potentially see moved through two successive sessions of a legislature and then given us a chance to vote on?
Sure. So 2 quick points. So Daniel Sir, who's the legal fellow at IRG, has done excellent work in the space of kind of this rational basis review. And I know We don't want that to be a campaign issue. I know you've said that, Vicki, before, but now we are in the world where we need to make it clear that there's strong legal precedent. Remember, it was a 4-3 decision in the early 90s that upheld school choice, that you could have dollars go to a religious school, right, that is providing essentially, an education in lieu of public education at traditional school, right? So we have the precedent. There was a rational basis for the legislature to do that. So that every group that's able to, whether it's by an amicus brief, right, if there's litigation, they need to assist in that litigation, make that argument clear. And frankly, again, I go back to my point, Vicki, I think this is going to be a very political court. I think we need to use that to our advantage. There needs to be, if there's litigation, there needs to be a public pressure campaign. We need to do an effective job, and I don't know, that's above my pay grade. I don't know who does this, but there needs to be a public pressure campaign showing all the families, not only in Milwaukee, right? We've been talking about the urban families in Milwaukee. There's now families, poor families in outstate Wisconsin that are sending their kids to good traditional schools that
right.
that align with their values. We need to be highlighting those families.
Well, I agree. And before I run out of time, I agree with you on that. But I do think there's a place that maybe the Constitution, not just litigation, because, again, they don't care about argument. They don't care about the law. That's what we're up against here. And I agree with you on the campaign as well, but that look at what makes sense to protect in our state constitution. Is school choice one of those things? I think homeschooling is a no-brainer, frankly. But is school choice also one of those things? I don't know, but that there should be people strategizing strategy about these things in our legislature instead of working on ways to try to jack up our utility rates. Unfortunately, Jake, I'm out of time. I do appreciate the time on the show, though. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Vicki.
All right, take care. And that's Jake Curtis, Institute for Reforming Government. You can go to their website and you can also download their Court Watch documents, which are great. We need to take a break on the Vicki McKenna Show, and I will be right back.